Millionaire woman marries a jobless mechanic. What he shows her on day 7 changes everything. First rays of dawn filtered through the floor-to-ceiling windows of the penthouse apartment overlooking San Francisco Bay, where 36-year-old Natalie Williams stood reviewing quarterly financial reports from her investment firm, Williams Capital Management. As the founder and CEO of one of California's most successful venture capital companies, Natalie had built her fortune by identifying promising startups and guiding them to extraordinary success, generating returns that had made her one of the youngest billionaires in the tech industry. Natalie's world was one of calculated risks and strategic decisions, where every investment was analyzed through multiple data points and market projections. Her personal life had been organized with the same methodical approach that had made her business ventures successful. Relationships were evaluated for compatibility and mutual benefit. Social interactions were planned to advance professional objectives, and emotional decisions were carefully avoided in favor of rational choices that supported her long-term goals. This systematic approach to life had served Natalie well in building her business empire, but it had also created a profound sense of isolation and disconnection from authentic human experience. Her relationships with other wealthy professionals felt transactional and superficial, lacking the spontaneity and genuine emotion that she had begun to realize were missing from her carefully controlled existence, the catalyst for the most impulsive decision of Natalie's adult life had occurred 3 weeks earlier during what should have been a routine drive to a business meeting in Napa Valley. Her luxury sedan had broken down on a remote stretch of highway, forcing her to seek help at a small independent garage that seemed to specialize in older, working-class vehicles rather than the high-end imports typically driven by people in her social circle. The mechanic who had responded to her situation was 32-year-old Marcus Rodriguez, a man whose appearance and demeanor were completely different from anyone in Natalie's professional or social environment. Marcus wore oil-stained coveralls, had calloused hands from years of manual labor, and spoke with the easy confidence of someone who was comfortable with his skills and place in the world, despite having few material possessions or obvious markers of conventional success. What had struck Natalie about Marcus wasn't his mechanical expertise, which was considerable, but his genuine kindness and complete lack of interest in her obvious wealth and status. When her expensive car had required a complex repair that would take several hours, Marcus had offered her coffee from a thermos and engaged her in conversation that ranged from philosophy to current events, demonstrating intelligence and insight that challenged her assumptions about education and social class. Marcus's background was as far removed from Natalie's privileged world as possible to imagine. He had grown up in a working-class Latino family, learning automotive repair from his father and grandfather while helping to support his extended family through various economic hardships. His formal education had ended with high school, but his curiosity about the world and commitment to continuous learning had given him knowledge and perspectives that impressed Natalie more than most conversations with her highly credentialed business associates. The 3 hours Natalie had spent at Marcus's garage while her car was being repaired had been unlike any afternoon she could remember. Without the pressures of board meetings, investor presentations, or strategic planning sessions, she had found herself engaged in the kind of authentic conversation she hadn't experienced since college. Marcus listened to her thoughts and opinions, without calculating how her responses might benefit him professionally, and he shared his own perspectives without trying to impress her or gain her approval. When Marcus had refused to accept payment beyond the standard rate for his repair services, despite learning about Natalie's wealth and business success, she had been both confused and intrigued. His explanation that good work deserved fair compensation, but that friendship couldn't be purchased, had introduced her to a value system that was completely different from the transactional relationships that dominated her world. Natalie's decision to return to Marcus's garage the following week, ostensibly to check on her car's performance, but actually to continue their conversation, had marked the beginning of the most authentic relationship she had experienced as an adult. Their friendship had developed through regular visits that had nothing to do with automotive repair and everything to do with the intellectual and emotional connection they had discovered during that first unexpected encounter. Marcus had been equally drawn to Natalie, not because of her wealth and success, which intimidated rather than impressed him, but because of her intelligence, curiosity, and the vulnerability she revealed when she was away from her corporate environment. He had seen past her business persona to recognize someone who was searching for meaning and connection despite having achieved everything that society typically considered important. The romance that had developed between Natalie and Marcus had challenged both of them to examine their assumptions about compatibility, social expectations, and what they truly wanted from life. For Natalie, Marcus represented authenticity and emotional depth that had been missing from her relationships with other successful professionals. His contentment with simple pleasures and his focus on relationships rather than achievements had shown her different ways of measuring success and finding fulfillment. For Marcus, Natalie's friendship had provided intellectual stimulation and emotional support that helped him envision possibilities beyond the limited horizons of his working-class background. Her belief in his intelligence and potential had encouraged him to consider educational and career opportunities he had never thought accessible to someone with his background and circumstances. However, their relationship had also been complicated by the obvious disparities in their social and economic status. Natalie's family and business associates had been shocked by her involvement with someone they considered entirely inappropriate for a woman of her achievement and responsibilities. Their opposition had been based not only on class prejudices, but also on practical concerns about how such a relationship might affect her professional reputation and business relationships. Marcus had faced different, but equally challenging pressures from his own community, where some friends and family members suspected that his relationship with Natalie was motivated by financial opportunity rather than genuine affection. His decision to continue seeing her despite these suspicions had required him to defend his integrity and motivations in ways that were both painful and isolating. The wedding that had shocked both their worlds had been as impulsive as it was inevitable. After 3 weeks of intense courtship that had convinced both of them that their connection transcended social boundaries, Natalie and Marcus had decided to marry in a simple civil ceremony that deliberately avoided the elaborate planning and social expectations that would have dominated a traditional wedding between people of Natalie's status. The ceremony had taken place at San Francisco City Hall on a Thursday afternoon, witnessed only by 2 strangers who had served as legally required witnesses. Natalie had worn a simple white dress purchased that morning from a department store, while Marcus had borrowed a suit from a friend who worked in restaurant management. The contrast between this modest ceremony and the elaborate weddings typically featured in society publications had been deliberate and symbolic, representing their commitment to building a relationship based on authentic love rather than social approval. The first week of their marriage had been spent in Natalie's penthouse apartment, where Marcus had tried to adjust to living in luxury that exceeded anything he had previously experienced. His obvious discomfort with the expensive furnishings, elaborate technology, and service staff that managed Natalie's domestic life had created tension and awkwardness that neither had anticipated. During their courtship, Natalie had begun to worry that their different backgrounds and lifestyles might be incompatible in ways that hadn't been apparent during their brief courtship. Marcus's reluctance to accept her offers of financial support, professional connections, or lifestyle upgrades had created a dynamic where her attempts to share her advantages felt like intrusions into his independence and self-respect. Marcus, meanwhile, had been struggling with feelings of inadequacy and displacement in Natalie's world. Despite her attempts to make him comfortable, he felt like an imposter in environments where his lack of formal education and professional credentials made him conspicuous and uncomfortable. His pride and commitment to self-reliance had made it difficult for him to accept help or support that felt like charity rather than partnership. By the 7th day of their marriage, both Natalie and Marcus were questioning whether their impulsive decision had been a mistake that would ultimately hurt them both. The authentic connection they had discovered during their courtship seemed to be dissolving under the pressures of trying to merge their incompatible lifestyles and social expectations. It was on this 7th morning, as they sat in awkward silence over breakfast in Natalie's marble-appointed kitchen, that Marcus made a decision that would transform their understanding of each other and their marriage. He announced that there was something important he needed to show Natalie, something that would explain aspects of his background and circumstances that he hadn't previously revealed. Marcus's request that Natalie accompany him to a location across the city without explanation of their destination or purpose created a moment of uncertainty and anticipation that would either resolve the tensions in their marriage or provide confirmation that their union had been based on incomplete understanding of each other's true circumstances and capabilities. As they prepared to leave the penthouse for Marcus's mysterious revelation, neither of them could have imagined that what he was about to show her would not only transform their marriage, but would also change Natalie's understanding of success, purpose, and the different ways that people could contribute meaningfully to their communities and the world. Marcus guided Natalie through neighborhoods of San Francisco she had never visited, despite living in the city for over a decade. They traveled from her affluent Pacific Heights penthouse through the Mission District, where colorful murals decorated buildings housing working families, small businesses, and community organizations that served the city's Latino population. As they drove deeper into areas where Natalie's expensive car attracted curious stares, she began to understand that Marcus was taking her into a world that existed parallel to her own, but which she had never encountered or considered. Their destination was a modest building on a residential street lined with small houses and apartment complexes that housed families struggling to make ends meet in one of America's most expensive cities. The structure itself was unremarkable, a converted warehouse that had been subdivided into workshop spaces and community meeting rooms. However, the activity surrounding the building suggested that it served an important purpose for the neighborhood's residents. As Marcus led Natalie through the building's entrance, she was immediately struck by the sounds of machinery, conversation in both English and Spanish, and the purposeful energy of people engaged in meaningful work. The space had been transformed into a combination vocational training center, community workshop, and social service hub that provided resources and opportunities for residents who had been excluded from traditional pathways to economic advancement. Marcus's role in this community became apparent as they moved through the facility, and he was greeted with obvious affection and respect by dozens of people engaged in various activities. Children working on homework assignments called out greetings. Adults learning new job skills paused their training to acknowledge him. And elderly residents sitting in a comfortable lounge area smiled and waved as he passed. His presence clearly brought joy and comfort to people who viewed him as more than just a friend or neighbor. The first workshop Marcus showed Natalie was an automotive repair training program where teenagers and young adults were learning skills that could lead to good-paying careers in the growing electric vehicle industry. The sophisticated equipment and structured curriculum rivaled what was available at expensive trade schools, but this program was free and specifically designed to serve young people from backgrounds that typically lacked access to such opportunities. Natalie's amazement deepened as Marcus explained that he had designed and funded this program using savings he had accumulated over 15 years of careful financial management and strategic investments. Despite his modest lifestyle and claims of being unemployed, Marcus had been building wealth through disciplined saving and investing, while simultaneously using his resources to create opportunities for others in his community. The second area Marcus revealed was a computer training center where adults were learning digital skills that could help them transitioned from declining manufacturing jobs to emerging technology careers. The state-of-the-art equipment and comprehensive software training programs represented investments that would have cost hundreds of thousands of dollars, all funded through Marcus's careful financial planning and community partnerships he had. Developed over years of dedicated service, Marcus's explanation of his true circumstances transformed Natalie's entire understanding of their relationship and his character. The man she had married, believing him to be an unemployed mechanic struggling to make ends meet, was actually a self-made millionaire who had accumulated wealth through the same kind of strategic thinking and disciplined execution that had made her successful in business. The crucial difference was that Marcus had chosen to invest his resources in community development rather than personal luxury. The revelation continued as Marcus showed Natalie the financial records documenting his investments, savings, and philanthropic activities over the past decade. His portfolio included real estate holdings, stock investments, and business partnerships that had generated returns comparable to what professional investors achieved. However, instead of using these profits to enhance his personal lifestyle, Marcus had systematically reinvested everything into programs that served his community. Marcus's motivation for concealing his wealth and capabilities became clear as he explained his philosophy about money, success, and social responsibility. He had learned through observation and experience that revealing his financial resources often changed how people treated him, creating expectations and assumptions that interfered with authentic relationships and community service. By maintaining a modest lifestyle and presenting himself as someone who shared the economic struggles of his neighbors, he could work more effectively to address their needs and concerns. The community center that Marcus had created represented more than philanthropic generosity. It was a comprehensive approach to addressing systemic poverty that combined job training, educational support, small business development, and social services in ways that traditional charity organizations couldn't achieve. His deep understanding of his community's needs, combined with his business acumen and financial resources, had created programs that were actually helping families achieve long-term economic stability. Natalie's tour through the facility revealed the scope and sophistication of Marcus's work. A small business incubator provided space and resources for entrepreneurs who couldn't afford traditional commercial leases. A child care center allowed parents to attend training programs without worrying about supervision for their children. A legal aid clinic staffed by volunteer attorneys helped residents navigate immigration, housing, and employment issues that could derail their progress toward economic independence. The most impressive aspect of Marcus's operation was its sustainability and effectiveness. Unlike traditional charity programs that provided temporary relief, his initiatives were designed to create lasting change by giving people skills, resources, and opportunities they could use to improve their circumstances permanently. The success stories were evident throughout the facility. Former program participants who had found good jobs, started successful businesses, or gone on to higher education were now volunteering to help others follow similar paths. Marcus's explanation of why he had concealed this work from Natalie revealed both his humility and his concern about how wealth could complicate relationships. He had wanted her to know and love him as a person, rather than as a philanthropist or community leader, fearing that revealing his resources and achievements might change the dynamics of their authentic connection. His decision to show her the truth on their 7th day of marriage had been motivated by his recognition that their relationship couldn't survive if it was based on incomplete understanding of who they really were. Natalie's response to these revelations was complex and profound. Her initial shock at discovering that Marcus possessed wealth and business sophistication that rivaled her own was quickly replaced by admiration for how he had chosen to use his resources and abilities. His commitment to serving others rather than accumulating luxury had demonstrated values and priorities that challenged her own assumptions about success and fulfillment. The realization that Marcus had been testing her character and motivations, just as she had been evaluating his, created a moment of mutual recognition and respect that transformed their marriage from an impulsive romantic decision into a partnership based on shared values and compatible goals. They had both been searching for authentic connection with someone who could see past wealth and status to appreciate character and integrity. Marcus's invitation for Natalie to become involved in his community work offered her an opportunity to use her business expertise and resources in ways that could create meaningful change in people's lives. Her venture capital experience could help expand and improve the programs Marcus had created, while his deep community connections and understanding of local needs could guide her involvement in directions that would be most effective and appropriate. Partnership that emerged from this revelation combined Marcus's community-focused approach with Natalie's business expertise and larger financial resources. Together, they began developing programs that could be replicated in other communities, creating a model for community development that addressed both immediate needs and long-term economic empowerment. 6 months after Marcus's revelation, their joint foundation had expanded to serve 3 additional neighborhoods in San Francisco, while also launching pilot programs in Oakland and San Jose. Natalie's transition from traditional venture capital investing to community development work had given her life new meaning and purpose, while Marcus's programs had gained the resources and expertise needed to help hundreds of additional families achieve economic stability. Their marriage had evolved into a true partnership that combined love, shared values, and complementary skills in service of goals that neither could have achieved alone. The impulsive decision to marry after 3 weeks of courtship had been validated by the discovery that they were both committed to using their advantages and abilities to create positive change in the world. The story concluded with Marcus and Natalie celebrating their first wedding anniversary by opening a new community center in a different city, surrounded by families whose lives had been transformed by the programs they had created together. Their unlikely union had proven that authentic love could transcend social boundaries while also demonstrating that the greatest wealth came from using one's resources and abilities to help others achieve their potential. The jobless mechanic, who had revealed his secret on day 7 of their marriage, had given Natalie something more valuable than financial success. He had shown her how to find purpose and fulfillment through service to others, creating a life that was rich in meaning, rather than merely rich in material possessions.
Thank you for watching this story unfold with us here on M&A The Story Unfolds. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a new tale. We'd love to know where you're watching from. Leave a comment below and tell us what part of the world you're joining us from. Your support means everything. See you in the next story.